Hey. It's been a while since we saw them, huh?
Hi!
Hey.
Hola!
So, tomorrow, or as they say in Dominican Republic,
Mañana.
blood drive.
Yeah.
Blood drive. Tomorrow.
Live and in person, Brian and Janelle, 6 to 9.
And if you've been there before, you've seen before, we've been in the sanctuary where everyone's like, shh, they're giving blood. We're not going to be in there. It's going to be a party out in front of the area before you go give your blood. Then we'll leave you alone when you got the needle and the blood and the cookies and all that. So we'd love to have you be there. And by the way, first 100 people to donate blood get to choose between the brand new Brian and Janelle. I'm in the family.
Nice, right there.
Or I wasn't. Apparently I'm not. I don't have the other one. It's one of those fabulous. Kelly will get it. You'll see in a minute. A fabulous, not disposable, but reusable shopping bag. I was searching for the word. And do you like overtime? Well, actually, click like then, or like when I'm talking to Heart and when she's talking the angry face. And then I just beat you to it.
Wow.
And also share it. That's the way you can generate these conversations in your everyday life. So
I've done that myself.
There's the bag.
There's the bag. There you
Brian,
go.
Janelle, I'm in the family. Do you see it? That could be yours. You get to choose if you're one of the first 100 donors. So think of it. What were you saying, Ryan?
The sharing. I've done that. A topic that I thought would really pique the interest of one or several of my friends. I'll share that particular conversation with them. And it's an easy way to do that, and you'll foster conversation, between you and your friends that way.
And we've got one today that actually generates a lot of disagreement with the two of us. It's one of those, I said potato, she says, I don't know, like patata, who says that? Tomato, tomata? Whatever, we don't know. But nonetheless, she is an ideal. You're an idealist.
Yes.
And you're an optimist.
Yes.
And I'm a realist and a cynic. And so there's times when we find a crossroads and she tries to force me down the wrong path, and I don't know what to do about that. So today,
there's the side.
I saw an article that I love, and I want to get the team's reaction and your reaction to this. This resonates with me and drives her crazy. Where do you go on this? Our article from the New York Times called, "Let's Hear It for the Average Child." Not the exceptional child, not the valedictorian, not the whatever. Let's hear it for the average child. And this person does this fictitious graduation speech where they say, please hold your applause till all the names are given. They make you do that, and then no one listens.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody ruins the graduation ceremony. She goes on to say this: we have a few special achievements left to acknowledge. First, to the student who does all the homework in his hardest subject and turns it in promptly, who studies diligently for tests and shows up at every before-school help session, who has never once read an online summary instead of an actual book, and who nevertheless manages to earn no higher than a C. You have already aced the real tests in life. To the student with friends gathered hither and yon, my favorite pairing of words.
Ah, yes.
Hither and yon.
You can't just do hither, has to have yon. Across grades and groups and genders, you feel like an outsider at every insider gathering. You may wonder what it's like to feel deeply enfolded within a group whose very membership confers identity. How easy it would be, you may think, to be told where to go and what to wear and whom to stand next to, but basically, good for you for being the kind of blended average, don't stand out in the crowd kind of person. To the bench warmers and water boys and the equipment managers who followed every play without getting a smudge on their pristine jerseys, we delight in your love for the game and salute your loyalty to the team. To the student who fled for the restroom on dissection day and took a 0 in the biology lab. It's great that you love animals and didn't want to slice one to pieces. I added the slice to pieces part if you read this yourself. To the student who bombed the history final because you stayed up all night talking to a friend whose heart is breaking. There is honor in your choice. Let's hear it for the average child.
Hey!
But you hate that.
I would say that last example is an exceptional child. One who is willing to put their own benefit to the side in order to help someone else.
But even for my standard, though, it's complicated because I tell my kids to do their best. Mm-hmm. That person did not do their best on the test.
On the test, but in life.
But they valued people over academic success.
Way better.
To me, that's a tremendous success. But academically, it's a failure. So I applaud and acknowledge that most kids in school, and this is why I love this, because most kids in school are this. But we only cheer for the exceptional, and we push our kids to be the exceptional, knowing they probably won't be. Which I know that's the part you don't like, right?
Yeah, I think the difference though is I have the advantage to change what that looks like. So for example, because I homeschool my children, the hours they spend on things, for example, either that they're not good at or not interested in is different.
Yeah.
My son, for example, who is like awesome at biology, loves animals and all of that, he can go deep and dive deep in that. I can ask more of him of that. I can ask more of excellence because I know where he's at with that. I can be flexible with the child that's like, well, I'm an average math student, and be like, okay, cool, that's fine. But I'm expecting excellence in this area that you're good at. And I also think it all depends. For me, excellence is important. Above average depends on what you're good at or what you value. So one example is, for me as a mom, I would be like almost, well, no, an average mom in terms of how I keep my household. I will put the dishes down in a second to sit with my child and connect heart to heart. So I excel at a relationship all day long, knowing this is making me fail at the Martha Stewart beautiful house.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I can't excel at everything, but I identify what am I good at, passionate about, and what is important to me, what's my priority. Then I expect, because I know how far I can go, no, I'm not going to be average. I know I can do more. I owe that to the people that I serve. If I'm an employee, I owe that to my boss to say, you know what, I'm shooting for excellence. I'll give you an example, which I kind of saved for this.
I'm in trouble then.
Josh, our manager, he was talking about pushing yourself. And he said, reach as high as you can. And I reached. He's like, you're doing as hard. Yeah. And I said, yeah. And then he put his hand above and he said, try to touch this. And I reached even higher. So he proved to me how we can push ourselves past what we think we can do. The attitude of, oh, you know, I'm just going to be average, makes it so that you never discover how much further you can go. And that's what I'm hoping to do for my kids as a parent and as a homeschool mom. I want you to push further than you think that you can reach. That's what a coach does. That's what a parent should do. And I think it's a disservice because our flesh already wants to say, this is what I can give. So as a coach, I want to be the one to tell them, no, you can go far, you can go past that.
By the way, hello to Mike and Anita. What's up, Deborah? Tammy, Callie. Deborah said a student should always be ready, quote unquote, to take a test, so it would never really bomb if they were not able to do a final study before the exam, especially for the unexpected need, as mentioned. Yes, but I think we've all been there where we poorly perform on a test that we're ready for because we're exhausted.
Yeah.
The implication is the kid got zero sleep, and we make better decisions having not studied and being rested than we do studying and not being rested.
Well, and I think even if you are rested, like, I was never a good test taker, but I was good at all the homework that I had to do.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
But
I
and what we're talking about is this New York Times article I love, which is called "Let's Hear It for the Average Child," and I think what's interesting is that, as you and I disagree on this, I still haven't figured out a way to help you totally understand where I'm coming from.
Okay.
Because I don't walk around telling myself or anyone to be average. Like, I coached the worst girls soccer team in the conference when I was a high school teacher. I was a varsity soccer coach, and I'm not being mean. Statistically, we were the worst every year in the conference. Like, when they would do playoffs, they teamed the worst team against the best team. We were always against the best team. Like, usually the state champion. Right? And so I would simultaneously know that none of my girls were going to get a scholarship. None of my girls were good enough to get any sort of meaningful, sizable scholarship at any sort of noteworthy school.
Right.
I still challenged them to do their best. But I knew, and so did they. None of them were going to make it professional, and some of them still had illusions that they were going to somehow be some sort of, like, amazing soccer player that would get a scholarship to a D1 school.
I think words matter and goals matter. And so I get it. If your child,
They're going to be average.
no,
They're
yeah,
14.
that's fine. But for example, I actually have a gifted. Len's family is like, they are very good at music. One of my children is a gifted musician. He probably won't do that as a career. He's just good at music. If he told me, which he never has, you know what, Mommy, I want to play for the Cleveland Orchestra, which is like amazing. We love the Cleveland Orchestra. I would not be the parent to tell him, well, you know what, you might not make it. If I already know you're good at it, I'd be like, okay, great. And so my job as a parent is to bring the resources, get him around people that will push him, that will challenge him, that will get him there. To tell him mentally, you might not make it. Are you serious?
What's interesting,
What I want to make sure is that he doesn't approach that goal with his identity being on setting that goal.
Right.
But go ahead and I think a winner walks into the field with a winning mindset. You know who I remember? LeBron. 2 years before, none of my kids are like that, but I'm saying the mindset of a winner, 2 years before he won, he said when he was holding that trophy, there was like an interview or something that night he won where he said, I saw this night and replayed this night for the last 2 years. It matters what you visualize. If you tell yourself, oh, I might not make it, that's exactly what's going to happen. You might not make it.
Okay, so one of my favorite examples in this long list of average children, the New York Times editorial writer Margaret Renke is cheering for, or Renkel. Renk something.
Yeah.
Can't tell with the font. I love this example, and I think this perhaps can be some of our middle ground on this. And we'd love to hear how you address this. Like, do you cheer for this concept of applauding the average child?
Right.
And so, and we'd love to see your comments on there. So she's talking about this person who does all their homework in the hardest subject for them, turns it in on time, studies hard for the test, goes to all the help sessions, reads all the books, never does Cliff Notes, but still got a C. Okay? I applaud that student. And I think you do too.
Yeah.
Because their internal barometer for excellence is based on their personal ability and performance,
Right.
not on something external.
Right.
The world says doing all that and getting an A is success.
Oh, yeah.
The world says doing all that getting a C is failure.
Right.
So
Right.
how do I raise a kid that I'm pushing for personal excellence to not feel like they're letting me and themselves down when they do all those things and get a C?
Part of that, though, is the standard of measurement is the test taking. And we know some kids, like Kelly admitted, some are not good at taking tests.
Right.
And so maybe through high school they come out and they think, oh, I'm a C, I'm just average. But there are others who are really good at taking a test who've never had to work that hard.
That's right.
And they're going to find out, go to college, whoa, these classes are a lot harder. I don't know how to study.
Yeah.
And the others are going to come into, wherever they end up, whether it's college or some other career, and be like, because they know how to work hard, they're going to be a diligent employee and they're going to be a big success in that regard.
Absolutely. In fact, I would hire that student in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah.
That's a student I'd want to work for me. But the world would look at the student with the academic accolades and say they should be the one that's hired. This person is going to give me their 100% or more every day of the week. They may not be the best,
Right.
but I don't care. They're doing their best, and that's what I'm concerned about. And I'm afraid that if I, be like, oh, LeBron James visualized his victory, so you need to visualize yourself acing your SATs.
No.
Or, or getting a perfect score.
Not random goals. Visualize yourself. For me, I'm passionate about homeschooling. I'm passionate about being connected to my kids and having strong relationships. Because that matters to me, I visualize that. I visualize, like, I'm not shooting for 18 summers with my kid. My kid is he's gonna come around. I do that with my mom 40 years later.
By the way, good morning.
So,
Lisa's GMS.
So what I'm saying is not just random, just because the school said you got to be an A student. Mike says, just a thought, typically a person won't be more successful than their goal, so set it high.
So, but
That's true.
what's your reaction to that child, as I described it, the one in the article that worked harder than everybody else, went to all the sessions, turned everything in, still got a C. What do you do with that kid? Do you applaud them or say
Yeah.
you should get a B next time?
No, I applaud them. And
Without qualification or...
well,
Is
we're
that a
assuming I
success?
know this child, right?
Well, I mean, this is a kid. Yeah, of course you know this
yeah,
kid.
if we know you tried your best, yeah, fine.
Then
I
you're
got
happy?
I had C's.
Then you're happy.
And I did the best I could, yes.
And that you're happy with average.
With average, when that's the highest you can give. What I'm saying is, you know, and I know kids, and I know myself. I know the areas where it's like, no, I can do better than average.
I agree.
And it may take me 10 years
Why?
to
Because
reach
it's not their
my
personal.
potential.
They're not working their hardest.
That's not necessarily true. That's not. You can be able to do something and have to work yourself toward that,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean like, oh, if I work hard, it's just going to happen. No, you could know I can do better, but I have to put effort to grow to the point where I'm doing the best that I can.
So, but average can be success. And average can be celebrated.
Right.
You would celebrate that average student.
Yes.
And what if your kid came to you and said, Mom, that's me. I'm the kid that works the hardest, but can't seem to get the good grades. Because I've watched this with one of my kids.
Yeah.
And this child, it's heartbreaking for them because of how the world defines success. They can't hear me say that I know they did their best. That's all I'm worried about. They hear everyone else telling them how there's what's supposed to define their success.
Right.
Because the world says at the end of high school, you take the ACTs and you get a really good score, you're great. And if you get a low score, you're not.
Right. And that's why I homeschool.
Yeah.
I don't.
No, but your kids still have to take the ACTs.
They do, but the reason one of the reasons I homeschool, I don't gotta get caught up on all that. I have students that are average, and they will run circles around people with relationship, communication, administration of their business. So success to me is knowing you could go, you know what, this goes into, I was an average mechanical engineering student compared to my peers. And I walked into interviews. They were interviewing for an internship, a year-long internship, top corporations, Ford Motor Company, NASA, Boeing. And I went to the leader and I said, I'm not going to get this job because I don't compare to my peers. And, you know, obviously she was like, no, it's fine. Out of the 12 companies that interviewed me, 10 of them gave me an offer. 10 of them.
Because
so
you
what I'm
displayed
saying
these
is I
qualities.
know, and I know people who are in the industry right now that are not good test takers, but they can solve problems. They
Yep.
can build relationships.
That's right.
They can. So I'm not
So we
caught
agree.
up.
Sounds like we agree.
It's what you said. It depends on where the ladder is against. So for some of my kids, if it's like, oh no, what you're reaching for is a perfect score, I would be like, no, that's not your thing. Excellence for you does not look like what the world defines. That's part of the problem with the school system. It's cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Not everybody is a great test taker. Not everybody is for corporate America. Not everybody is. Do you see what I'm saying? That's the problem. But you gotta find what wall are you gonna put the ladder up against, and then you better reach for excellence there. You gotta reach for excellence. I believe that's
Sure.
that's what.
Excellence as defined by what? Like what defines excellence?
Well,
Can you
like
help?
you mentioned,
No, I'm curious. I want to know.
one child is musically gifted and could potentially, you know, you could push them toward the Cleveland Orchestra.
If he wanted to, right?
Right. But that's that one child. You wouldn't
Right.
go to the others and say, well, you really have no rhythm, so
Right.
I want you to be in the orchestra.
Right.
You'd steer them toward where their gifting is.
Right.
And that, I think, is the same thing, that you find out where their area is and then pursue that excellence.
And push them to their highest potential.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But at the end of the day, isn't it true that most people end up, in terms of income, success, intelligence, most people are average?
Right. Right.
Because of the bell curve effect, basically.
The
Like-
bell curve effect, and you can't let most people aren't striving. Most people aren't saying, you know what, I'm gonna be excellent. So I'm not gonna let what most people are doing define who I
Well, no,
am.
but, okay.
Because most people aren't trying.
But this
It
is-
takes
yeah.
like to go the extra mile. It's the exceptional that do it. And then you got the rest of the people sitting down saying, well, no, it's because most of us are average. No, most people are giving average work and average effort, and so they get average
and
results.
I would never applaud that. I don't think that's what they should do.
So you can't define this by most people. Most people are doing average work, and that's what you get is average results.
Okay, and most people I know that reach for excellence still end up in the average category.
Okay.
Would you agree that when it comes to, just forget everything, look at statistics?
Yeah, I agree.
So the question for the optimist is this: what do you do with the fact that despite our reaching for excellence, most people will still be average?
What do you do with it?
Yeah, because all I'm trying to say in this whole thing is that the cynic will tell you, I agree with you, you should do your best. Always do your best. Always do your best. Work your hardest. And the Bible says to do that, and that involves doing what God wants you to do, following His plan. And at the end of the day, I have the knowledge that the odds are, statistically, I and everyone around me are going to be average. And they're not going to be LeBron, and they're not going to be homeless.
Right.
The average person is going to be
It's gotta be
somewhere in the
average.
mushy middle that is going to be close to or a little bit in debt, not have what they want,
Right.
not have all the circumstances. You see what I'm saying?
What
if
I
that's-
would say
so
is-
I'm agreeing with you about the effort thing.
Yeah.
And you're agreeing with me that at the end of the day, most people are going to end up somewhere in the mushy middle.
Right.
Yeah, and I think there's something in the saying that there's always someone more talented than I am. You know what I mean? Because I can work as hard as I can, but if someone's naturally talented, they're going to surpass me. So I'm stuck in that average.
You
kind
know
of
what?
place,
Oh,
you
God.
know?
By the way,
There's-
Jennifer says, I want to yield to Jennifer quick. She says, I think people end up average because they're reaching for excellence in the wrong area.
That's right.
Good point.
That's right.
That's
Good
true.
point.
Yes, some people will be average, but I don't think most need to be. Well, see, here's the other thing too, though. Like, if I remember averages correctly, trust me, and I'm not the math whiz here, the average ends up from a lot of people in the really bad end and a lot of people in the really high end, or the really low or really high, however you want to put it, creates the average in the center.
Yeah.
Okay? So the outliers, right, are part of the average.
Right.
I agree with Jennifer in the sense that all of us probably have one area where we will be well above average.
Right.
We may not even be the best.
Yeah. That's
We're not going to be LeBron, but we're going to be well above average.
Yeah.
But isn't that also true? Here's what the cynic will say. That other than that one area, you're probably average to below average. So in total, you are?
Average.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so
if you
one
want to
of my-
call it that, that's
So,
fine.
so
Like,
one of the fears of the cynic, at least this
Right.
cynic, is that if I push too hard towards goals and ideals, I'm going to create discontented, disappointed, and depressed people.
right.
Because
you
I
do
want
have to-
there
yeah.
has to be acknowledgement that most people are not outliers,
Right.
and most of us really only have, like Jennifer says, and maybe or two areas where we're really good. Like I love to do woodworking, but I'm not that great at it. I'm okay.
Right.
I'm sure. Someone called me a carpenter yesterday at the hardware store, and I got very uncomfortable. I'm not ready to address. Like, has anyone ever tried to do that with you?
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
No, I just play.
No, I play. Yeah. But I'm okay with that.
right.
I'm going to keep trying to be better, but I'm never going to be in a position where someone's going to go, I'd like to hire you. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
And it may just not be your thing, but I think if you find something that you're great at and you have a goal, I think the exciting thing of life is pursuing that goal
Yeah.
to get better and not putting your identity on, I have to reach this goal. I like what Mike said. He said Mike Gonzalez, the greatest people like Disney, Edison were average people who kept trying their best and didn't quit. This
Yeah.
reminds me of
That's
I love this woman. I'm actually reading her book now, Lisa Nichols. Her book, Abundance Now, is amazing. And she said, I hate it when people call me exceptional because that puts you off the hook. She's like, I worked hard and I
Yeah,
quit
that's good.
when other people early on said, oh, I'm not doing it. And I kept going. She was homeless. She
look
was
at
in a
Thomas
messed
Edison's
up.
the same way, right? How many times he failed at making the filament for a light bulb.
So that's what I'm saying.
He was the
It's
guy that worked the hardest.
Average
probably.
people find comfort in calling those people, oh, well, no, they're special. No, they probably, like in school, I did that. The kids that got the 98s and were complaining for their 2 points, it was easy.
Those kids,
It was
yeah.
easy for me to be like, well, you start putting all these excuses. Their parents such and such, or they're just smart. No, how about maybe they worked a little harder than I did?
Yeah.
They watch
And
less TV than
agree.
I did.
Oftentimes we give people intrinsic credit that doesn't have anything more to do than really hard work,
Right.
sweat equity. But as a realist, I'm just desperate to understand an optimist. And I got to know what you do with the average reality.
What do you do?
Like, how do you ignore it? Do you ignore the fact that most people will, by the world standards and perhaps by their own in most things, be very average in everything they do and in their life and their lot in life? What does the optimist do with that? Because in your eyes, everything's the best, right? Or like you're working toward the best
You're
because
working.
you're an idealist. You're looking at the best and you're going, I'm going to try to get there, and the realist just says, but you're not going to get there.
Let me throw something in that might shed some light.
Yes, because you're actually a realist, aren't you? Or do you lean optimist?
I'm an optimistic realist.
Oh wow! Basically, awesome.
Ron's
Yeah.
exceptional. I can say that.
In the world of athletics, we know the LeBron James, the Usain Bolts who can run like lightning bolt. But there's a ton of stories of people who, were the king of the backyard basketball in New York City or something, and it came easy to them, and they never applied themselves, never pushed for anything more than what their God-given talent was, and they never made any name for themselves.
Yeah, it's true.
People remember them as the bust,
Right.
and there's a lot of those along the way. We remember the guys who not only had the gifting, but either had someone coaching them or had the intestinal fortitude within them to say, this is it, I can do this, I'm going to keep pushing, and every step along the way, wow, I'm as fast as this guy, now I got to beat the guy from across town, then I got to beat the guy from downstate, then I got to beat the guy from another state, and keep pushing themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I think there's a lot of
yeah.
truth in that. Raw talent plus
Plus hard work.
really, really hard work.
The other thing is,
Yeah.
there have been seasons in my life. The one I remember the most, I was staying at home and just homeschooling for years. And one time I was asked to run a mom's group, which was a whole lot of responsibility, where like the average attendance was like 100 women per month. And I had a committee and all of that. At first I wanted to say no. Even though I knew where the Lord was taking me eventually, because that was the first push to the next level, I was like, oh my goodness, I can barely do what I'm doing at home now. Then in my prayer life, I realized, like, wait a minute. If you know the Lord is calling you somewhere and it's hard, the easy route is, no, that's too much, so maybe it's not for me. Or it could be the Lord saying, no, you just got to step it up and work harder so that you can be faithful at home and do what I'm calling you to do. So that's what I'm saying. If you're clear on where you're going and what your calling is, you're good at, and first of all, what the Lord is calling you to, then it's easier to say, is my best good enough? If it's not, maybe I need more resources. Maybe I need to talk to somebody. Because if not, it's easy to slip into the, oh, I'm doing the best I can. And if it's not enough, to just be like, well, maybe it's not for me. You see what I'm saying? Maybe it's just, I'm not ever going to get there. Instead of being resourceful to, no, I got to get better.
Yeah,
Because
and see,
my
I
best
agree
is
with
not
all
enough.
of that, 100%.
Okay,
and
good.
I live
Well,
that
then
out.
that's good.
I live that out. Case in point, I'm here as opposed to teaching high school in Minneapolis.
Right.
So, but there has to be, I think it gets down to, and I'll get to that in a second, by the way.
Yeah.
Lee says, loves the show.
Hi, Lee, Victoria.
Rod said, optimistic realist, go, Ron. I love that.
Yes.
Victoria asked, do you think Jesus was average? No, because Jesus is God. Okay, and so it gets down to what do you do with reality? And the realist fully embraces it to their detriment or whatever, and the idealist ignores it to their detriment or whatever.
I don't think you ignore it.
So then what do you do with it? I still haven't
What do you
gotten you to
do
give
with
me
the fact
answer.
that you're going to be average in
Yeah.
the end?
In the end, you agree with me. Most people in most things are average. In fact, LeBron James is average at most things except basketball.
Right.
So what do idealists do with that harsh reality?
You know what I do? I don't play God. And I don't know what in the end I'm going to be, period, if the Lord has called me somewhere.
But you already told me you agree that you're like,
I
we're all
agree that
gonna be-
most people, but we also agree that most people are not pursuing things with excellence. Most people are putting in average work and get average results. So I'm not
But realists
defining.
can do that too, though.
But what?
Realists give their best. I always do my best.
No, that's fine. I'm talking about average people. I'm not defining myself by average people because I don't know the kind of work you're doing behind closed doors. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like when people would tell me about teens. Oh, you better watch out with teens. I don't know what you were doing with your teens, so don't define my teens based on what you did.
So
only I know how much effort I'm putting with my teens.
So for my understanding purposes, you're saying that an idealist sets aside reality, and I'm trying to say that you're viewing it negative.
Done.
You're viewing it negative.
I wasn't done.
I'm trying to understand where you're coming from.
What I'm saying is, what an idealist does is, well, what I do. I don't play God. I don't know if Janelle, am going to end up average. I don't know that. So what I do is I push as hard as I can and try to be faithful. And if it's not enough, I try to be resourceful, and I do this all the time. I call people that are better than me. I get mentors. I read books. And I do the best I can because only God knows.
So how
At
do you
the
know
end
to
of my
quit?
life, I could look back and be like, wow, I was meant to be way above average in this area. Not in all.
But how do you know? Like, let's just say that, are you good at basketball?
No.
Let's just say, though, you get a great coach and you get good advice. How do you know when it's time to stop devoting effort to that and redirect it somewhere else?
I think you get clues. I mean, as you pray for direction, there are things you know you're good at. People tell you, the Lord puts things in your heart. That's my whole goal in homeschooling, helping my children identify, you're good at this. Yeah. You're good at this. And so surrounding them with people, so that kind of God gives you clues along the way of what you're good at. And it's our job to push, I think it is.
And see, what's interesting is I
because
agree
you're playing
100% with
God.
that.
Who am I to tell God, well, I'm going to be average, so I'm just going to do the best I can. You don't know?
Hold on. I'm not playing God.
You're just defining where you're going to end. You don't know where you're going to end. You have no idea.
No, I have no idea.
Just because the bell curve, God doesn't care about no bell curve.
I have no idea where I'm going to end up, and quite frankly, I don't care.
Okay.
What?
You don't care where you're going to end?
No, because really there's one chief end in life.
But you brought up the end.
The chief end in life is to glorify God.
Right.
However, anyone defines our success or lack thereof.
Right.
And what's interesting is I don't think the realist is trying to play God by any sense. They're not saying it's a foregone conclusion. They're just saying, I'm going to work as hard as I can, and I'm okay with the fact that if I get there and I'm still average, that's fine.
Okay.
But there's a difference. We've been talking about, I guess, two different classes of realists, because
perhaps
the one who will work as hard as they can and just admits that I'm probably going to end in the middle somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the other who says, I'm probably going to end in the middle somewhere, so why work hard?
Exactly. And that's I think what the defeatist pessimist will do, which is why I've never used the term pessimist.
Right.
Because I think realist is different.
Right.
I think it's very different, because one can't presume a realist is somebody who doesn't try hard because they think the end is average.
Right.
Yeah.
That's outrageous. And that's not real. That's not what a realist does. It may look that way to an optimist. I see how it looks that way, but it's certainly not that way.
I'm just thankful, just so you guys know, that Len is a realist and a cynic and all of that. And it's making me realize that in an organization, you need both.
You do.
Because in a recent conversation we had, when we've looked back and try to remind each other about what was our why, and let's remember our why in terms of staying motivated. I'm the one to push and to say, man, and we got to do better. And then he stopped me and was like, wait, hold up. Do you realize how much we've grown? So I love the way he doesn't shut down my effort to, we got to do better. But he reminds me, look back and don't lose courage, because we've grown a lot. And you need both in your team. Thank the Lord for people like MLK, Nelson Mandela. I mean, with that thinking about, well, we'll probably average. Why even strive to say we've had slavery for centuries, but we can do better in spite of everything? The Underground Railroad, those were people that believed and said, I don't care what the bell curve says. I'm getting out of here and I'm going to make it even if it takes death.
But see,
You got
I'm seeking common
progress
ground.
in humanity.
I'm seeking common ground.
No. I'm saying the team needs both. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
And the way Len and I have learned how to play both and validate both, the realist
Absolutely.
and the optimist. You see what I'm saying?
Because
the
in those
optimist
stories,
sitting in a plantation, people would have been like, "Are you crazy? How the heck are you going to get out of here?"
But
Think
see,
about that.
Nelson Mandela and Dr. King both needed people who
Right.
are totally nameless in history
Absolutely.
that are considered, by all intents and purposes, average.
Absolutely. I
In
agree.
fact, most people in those movements were.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, I think the unity we seek is this. The unity is that we agree on two fundamental biblical principles. Whether or not you're an idealist or whatever you want to call yourself. Number one, the chief end of man is to glorify God through Christ.
Yep.
And second of all, we're called very clearly to do our best. Work heartily with all your might,
Right.
I believe, to quote the scriptures. And so those two truths can be transcendent across.
Absolutely,
Wouldn't you
yeah.
say? And so even if we disagree about how to view the end of work, we can all agree on glorifying God through Christ
Absolutely.
and do your personal best. Yeah?
Yes. I agree.
So you agree
We
with
got to
me?
go. Yes.
We agree.
So she agrees with me.
I agree.
It's not about
Wow,
winning.
guys.
Thank you so much to everybody. Thank you, Rod and
Thanks.
Janet. Thank you so much.
Mike is always on. Thank you, Mike. Victoria. Jennifer, always on. Hi, Joe. Good morning.
Hi, guys.
And by the way, before we go, Janet had something great. Said, I used to be an optimistic idealist who lived by my dream rather than God's purpose. Now I am an optimistic realist, aka Ron,
Yes.
who reaches high because I know that's where God wants me to wants to take me.
Right.
I can't do it without Him.
Your purpose and your dream can be one. That's the ideal. That would be
Thanks,
awesome.
Janet.
Yes.
See you tomorrow at the blood drive. Remember, like, share this post. See you tomorrow at the blood drive.